Hello every folks, good morning and welcome to another installation of Know Your Tactics Ogre unit. So today, by popular demand, the next one is going to be Swordmasters, a class truly in a league of their own in terms of how little they've got going for them. Now, I took a little bit of a poll, and there were basically three frontrunners. So Swordmasters ended up winning this one, but we also have Rogues and Divine Knights coming up after this, just so you know. Any darn ways, what's the deal with the Swordmaster? Well, let me say right off the bat, they're very, very, very literal when they say Swordmaster, because they are able to master exactly one kind of sword, and that's 2H katanas. They're not very good. We're going to get into that more a little bit later, but they're basically, right off the bat, they are functionally limited to 4 slots, while everybody else is limited to 5 when it comes to their items, mainly because their only weapon option is a two-handed one. It's not a very good one. They can't even use fans to make up for this. And when it comes to skills, well, pretty much everything that they can do can be countered, but I wanted to actually show one interesting thing before we even get into all that. Because there is kind of an unsung little feature to this class that I really was not expecting until running into it while doing level 1 the other day. So, alright, here's the thing. They have a bit of a unique feature right here, which is Sling Stone. Now, yeah, it's just a 1 damage tap move, but you have to consider, when it comes to training up skills, they actually end up leveling up every time. Well, not leveling up, but they gain experience anytime they're checked in any way, regardless of whether this is any kind of good damage or not. Now, interestingly, this has put the Swordmaster in a position where they can attack often enough from enough ranges, because Sling Stone does actually have a pretty significant amount of range on it, that they are effectively able to take some type of counteraction against almost every type of attack barring magic. Meaning that they're able to actually train their skills at a much higher rate. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to be blowing, past everybody else in a crazy manner, but I will show this for consideration. Generally speaking, throughout this run, it has come down to about 1 racial rank per more or less like 7 or 8 ranks of a weapon rank for training purposes, right? Generally speaking, that's how it's gone. It has been incredibly slow to get racial skills up, which was kind of needed for this bizarre run. But I want to point out this right here. Look, got Anatomy and Katanas right here. She started off at rank 1 on both of these when I started cycling her in for the purposes of this run. And as you can see, she's almost gotten to rank 3 at the same time she's almost gotten to rank 6 for 2 HKs. Meaning that she is effectively getting dramatically faster racial training than most other classes. And why is this? Well, because they're able to attack multiple times per round, and they're able to take counters at multiple ranges. So if they're put in a position where they can counter a lot, they're going to train a lot. And because that Sling Stone doesn't have a weapon attached to it, that means that it is purely racial training. So if you want to have somebody training up anatomy or whatever else, simply having them, well, training as the Swordmaster is, oddly enough, the way to go. So yes, as unfortunate as it is to say, they are the master of racism. Anyway, so interesting little feature there, but let's go ahead and get into the negatives now, because of those, there are plenty. So yeah, this class basically sucks in terms of absolutely everything else, and yeah, that's what we're going to get into here. So, effectively speaking, what we're looking at here, let's go ahead and switch one of these randos into this class here to show you what I mean. So, they're locked into 1 weapon type, as I mentioned earlier. Why are 2 HKs bad? Let's go ahead and start there. Well, it's not necessarily attack rating, though I will say they're on kind of the mid to lower end as far as attack rates go throughout the game, until they take a bit of a massive spike towards the end. In fact, it's interesting that the Sweep Blade is actually one of the one of the higher penetration weapons, and can be combined with the highest penetration boosting skill to effectively give them the highest penetration damage, or rather highest penetration bonus of any melee attack. And basically second highest penetration bonus next only to guns. But it's completely worthless in their hands. That's kind of the thing that ends up coming up over and over here. So like, for example, Sweep Blade here. 182 attack is very high. Again, as I was showing there, axes maxed out at about 160. Like, let's go over to pretty much the top end of all the weapons for the sake of reference. So Top end of like fists is 165. Top end of daggers, not that this is really much of a thing, is 128. Top end of swords is 162. Top end of two-handed swords 168. Like top end of axes is 166. So spears at 161. Hammers at 189. So they're basically second only to hammers melee wise, in terms of their attack bonus. So, want to reiterate this every time. Attack bonus is armor penetration. So, they already have the highest armor penetration. Additionally, because they use a unique weapon, nothing is able to mitigate their weapon ranks. So, you know, a nice little positive there. It's nice that they can't get mitigated, but this also means that their Mighty Strike skill, which increases attack by 25%, is pointless, because they can already get past armor. Basically, Mighty Strike will slightly boost their damage in most cases. In most cases, it's going to be like 20-30 damage, because they're already getting past armor. It's just they don't scale well, so they're not getting insane bonuses. Again, it's weird, because I kept running multiplayer tests on this over and over and over, and kept wondering, like, why does the Sweep Blade suck? It's got such good stats, and that's basically why. They don't scale worth a crap. Anyway, so already a bit of a problem there. Also, they don't have they can equip shields, or they can't equip shields, sorry. So, no tanky options for them, so they're already limited to 4 slots, like I mentioned earlier. Gear-wise, they're, again, very limited. They don't get any higher-end helmets. Their armor, they get an alluring corset, and they get the alluring dress. Okay, fine. They get elemental vests, so they're looking at medium to light armor for the most part. As far as even use item effects, if we go down the list here, they don't get access to any of the gloves except for Daedalus, so that anatomy bonus is going to be one of their better defensive options, full stop. So if you have the Daedalus gaunts, and for some reason you're running Swordmaster, I mean, I personally like them just because they're a quirky, weird class, and I love those. But yeah, Daedalus is going to be one of their best equipment options right there. They get access to most of the boots for the movement options, but again, they don't really get access to some of the side grade ones there. They don't get access to the heavier armor ones, so that's a bit of a bummer. Which means that overall, their actual use item effects are very, very limited. So we're already limited on gear all across the board here, but let's go ahead and cover what is good here. So, interestingly enough, going back to basics is your best option. So let's go ahead and count down here to the best sword. Okay, so first of all, Sweep Blade. This is a class that doesn't get access to Spellcraft, meaning that their spell penetration sucks. Their actual intelligence score is very low, which means their penetration sucks. Their spell damage in general is just real bad. So this means that this Hellhound on the sword will almost, even with stacked augments, we're talking a case I gave them all, the maximum ranks they can possibly have at max stats, they still sucked at using Hellhound. So not very good there. Let's go down to Ogre's Bane. Okay, they can make fear go away. They already have a spell that can do that, but fine, I guess. Whatever. Bit of a weird one, but I have seen somebody make a pretty good build out of a light setup using this, so fine, whatever, moving on. Beadbound Blade, you get Ice Blast 3. Again, don't get access to Spellcraft, so it's really just going to be a plink shot, more or less. Warriors also get access to this, though interestingly enough, if I recall correctly, they actually have higher intelligence and better intelligence options. Meaning that, once again, they're just using this as an ice gun isn't really going to be that useful, but it might potentially be a decent tap move, I guess. The Crescent Sword gives you stun proof. I mean, that's nice, right? You get stop proof, and for some reason Flame Breath off the Ashura, which would be nice if it gave you a fire augment, but it gives you Draconology instead for all that anti-dragon stuff you're going to be doing with your Swordmaster. Cool. I mean, it would be nice if you could go into a map and combine, say, Dragon Slayer. I believe the Ashura can actually complete the Dragon Slayer set. But if you could combine that with the dragon armor, and, that'd be nice. But actually, let's go ahead and double-check something real quick, because I don't even think they can use that. Okay, so they can get Worm Scale. That's something. Can they get the Dragon Helm? No. Can they get the Dragon Gloves? No. Okay, so they don't even get the Dragon set, so screw that. There's absolutely no reason for that whatsoever. Them suckers are not really going to be fighting dragons. This is literally just you barely get any bonus. If you're combining it with Mighty Strike, to use against a dragon. Why are you having this dude fight a dragon? Just use preempt. If they use preempt, it's at least something. You know, they're at least hopefully getting multiple attacks and improving their dodge odds. Anyway, so yeah, wouldn't go for a sure either. You get Galvanize off of the Bringer of Light here, so you get True Strike. Yay! I mean, you should already be running True Strike 4 on them, but alright. Let's throw that out there. Alright, so this finally gets us to our actual one good weapon they get, the Maquahuddle. Interestingly enough, named after a, I believe it was like a Mayan, like, shark tooth sword, and for some reason, yeah, for some reason it's just a 2HK. No idea. Anyway, so yeah, parry bonus. It would be great if it was a deflect bonus. We'll get into that in a second. So parry, they really shouldn't be running. Stoneproof, great, because that does actually help them a lot. Petrifog. So when I was saying going back to basics, basically they do get access to Spell Strike. They do get access to Petrifog off the Maquahuddle, which means that they are actually very, very good at mass petrifying units, because this is a non-unique weapon. So, alright, cool. It's oddly specific, but sure, let's run with it. Again, no offensive bonus off this, so realistically there's barely even a point in running Strengthen on them, because, well, quite frankly, yeah, it's, this thing's not getting past armor. This is barely better than a dagger in terms of armor penetration. Anything that you might have seen in the past in terms of daggers scaling damage a whole lot is because you probably got their penetration bonuses up in the early game. In the late game, daggers cap out hard, and yeah, unfortunately 2 HKs do too. So yes, by far, when testing in multiplayer, the best approach here was using the Maquahuddle, completely disabling the other guy, and then just kind of hacking away at stuff. So, you know, maybe not exactly the best class option there. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at their actual skills here real quick, see if we can make something that's remotely viable. So Swiftfoot, they don't need that. We can go ahead and put like a Preempt on there. So let's talk about Preempt real quick. Preempt should 100% absolutely, positively, always be combined with Knockback. Basically, this means that gives it the Himido effect from FFT, where they can knock a unit backwards. Well, okay, in FFT, they just interrupted them. In this case, they are knocking them backwards when they're attacking, meaning that somebody takes a swing at them. They take a swing first, knock them backwards. The other swing does not happen. So that's fantastic there. Dodge they should not have, because the AI will decide to attack them based on their ability to hit and how much damage they can do. So if they see that they're not doing much damage, or that they are essentially not likely to hit, they are less likely to attack the Swordmaster. Although, frankly, their absolutely crap armor really just kind of throws that out the window anyway. Alright, so basically this is what I would kind of recommend as a starting point here. So Field Alchemy, because their war dances are terrible. Well, for the most part anyway. We'll get into that in a moment. We'll get into the hows and whys, I should say, in a moment. Okay, so additionally, we can probably sacrifice True Strike here. Potentially. Like, True Strike is one of those weird ones, but we want to probably put Counter on there. Well, we're actually going to want a few different things, but okay, whatever. Let's go back real quick. Okay, so 2 HKs. Generally speaking, they don't really get access to any real good finishers. They have decent penetration in the very high end of things, but around the mid to around the mid game and all that, they really hurt. Like mid to end game, they really hurt. Again, post game is kind of where their attack value shines, but by that point, they've got a lot of other problems. Field Alch for getting rid of the many debuffs that they will be taking. Preempt, because we want to be able to attack first. Anatomy, for obvious reasons against everything. Augment Earth is actually what we're going to be sacrificing here, in order to pick up Spell Strike, which is going to make that Maquahuddle actually useful. They're pretty iffy without it, but they do get access to Spell Strike 4 for that reason. I should mention they do have the option to use their War Dances, which we'll get into in a moment, that also benefit from Spell Strike, but that's iffy. Strengthen, there's probably not a whole lot of point in having that, so instead we're probably going to want to put Spell Ward on this guy. So Spell Ward to hopefully avoid as many debuffs as possible, because they're weak to too many debuffs to specifically pick out one to be immune to. True Strike, because you want to make that knockback hit. Constitution, because they're going to be taking hits, so you might as well give them high health. Give them Deflect, because, frankly, they have no options against ranged units. They don't get access to shields, so they can't stack their armor. They only get access to Sidestep 3, so basically in the endgame, due to the massive accuracy spike, they're, functionally speaking, unless you have Sidestep 4, you are not casually avoiding ranged attacks anymore. And then, so yeah, Deflect is your one way to save against that, because everything aside from guns can be deflected, and this actually has a reasonable enough chance to work that even at rank 1 it's worth keeping around. And then knockback for hopefully making preempt work. Now, skill-wise, there's not really much consideration here. So the use for all these three: Mighty Strike is if you have trouble getting past armor, or you want to just boost their damage slightly, and you have nothing better to do with your slots. Pretty high cost for that, though. Mind's Eye is, interestingly enough, their most expensive TP move, though its purpose is boosting TP. Because basically what this does, you combine this with counterattack, you put a unit into a fight, you make sure that nobody has a finisher or skill available on hand, so, you know, oddly specific timing there. But this will allow it to, without fail, dodge every single melee attack and counter with one of its own. Now, the many things that can actually counter this. Stop counters this. Shackle, I believe, counters this. Stun counters this. Using anything that is a skill, a finisher, a spell, or a ranged attack counters this. Do you see the problem with the Swordmaster yet? Because freaking everything counters them. Like, it should be notable that when I was doing the multiplayer tests, they lost to clerics regularly. They have negative win rate against clerics. They aren't even meant to attack. So yeah, this class is not exactly a winner. I will say, by the way, if you're coming into this wondering what's going on after they inevitably rework this entire thing for Reborn, don't be surprised. There is no way this class still sucks this bad in the remake. It hasn't even come out yet. We got another month and 8 days to go. There is no way they suck this bad. Anyway, it's still a fun class to play around with, but oh wow, are they bad. Okay. Let's, okay, so we've covered the fact that their gear is terrible, their axis is terrible, oh boy, let's cover their spells, and then we're gonna cover their finishers. Okay, so War Dances. One thing to mention right off the bat that gets forgotten and instantly disappoints people the second they try this. They are spells. Now, they're not really spells, they're actually more, skills that are treated as spells, but they burn through consumables every time you use them. You are spending $400 to $500 every time you want to cast one of their abilities. Now, basically, at the same time, you could also just spend a similar amount to go just use the scrolls to use these on anybody. So, anywho, you can absolutely sacrifice a skill slot for a minor discount on some very oddly specific buffs. So they've got a decent area of effect around them, basically a 2-tile range in each direction. So Treatise of Courage strengthens multiple nearby units, incredibly useful on challenge runs. Would best describe it as kind of dicey to sacrifice a thing for, since usually you know who you want to strengthen, and usually that is not your entire party. So 20% bonus damage if they get past armor. Harvest Dance. Now, you are functionally spending, again, several $100s in order to heal every unit around you for about 20 health. So, let me go ahead and tell you about this timeshare that I have for you. Moving on here, we get the Bellows Dance, which does fortify on everybody around. Neat. Shriving Dance. So this removes a small number of debuffs from multiple units. Now, this basically, when it says small number, I think there's a chance for it to roll multiple. Usually it seems to just remove one. It has just like a chance to remove debuffs. But you still need 35 TP, you still need to spend money to use it. Just kind of weird, you know? Next we get a Comely Dance. Inflicts Breached. You know, this could be useful as a support move. There's better ways to do it. Like, I mean, if, like, for example, let's take this. You throw your Swordmaster out there, you spend the TP that they would have needed to go use Preempt. Like, let's say they've got 60 TP on them, right? You can either use this to put breach on multiple units with a chance of success, or you can guarantee that you're going to take multiple attacks on everybody around there. And potentially, if you ended up going and, let's say, using a Terror Knight instead, they use that same amount of TP to hit the guy and give them breach and give them fear. Yeah, this is technically on multiple units, but this also has a chance to fail, and quite frankly, I believe their hit rate is fairly low as well. So, moving on. Next we get Bedeviling Dance. It slows multiple units, interestingly enough, despite the fact that it mentions that it is Dark affiliated over here. It doesn't have a damage component, so this doesn't matter. It's just kind of there for flavor. Same thing with Invigorating Dance, which reduces the TP of multiple units. It does not... I believe this one actually might potentially scale off of, or might potentially make some use off of the Light Affinity. But basically increases users' TP, lowers enemy TP. Technically useful, but again, very... it's just one of those things that just never really comes up. You're never going to remember that you have this at the time that you want to use this. Let's put it that way. Demon Petal Dance, it's an AoE charm. It is a more expensive, in all respects, shittier version of the thing that fairies can do. And again, you can just buy this to use on anybody. Actually, no, I believe that one, that is one of the ones that you do actually have to get as a drop, so okay, you can't necessarily use that on everybody. You can tell I'm just kind of starting to feel bad for this class already, because I honestly do find them charming to use. It's just that they've got nothing going for them. Technically, if you want to use them as a support, they get access to the first tier of Lobber, but not the other two, because they decided that would just make them too good. Like, I have a feeling in the balance phase, what they were thinking here is they're like, oh man, they can attack all these times from around, they're going to go in there, they're going to preempt, they're going to deflect stuff out of the way, they're going to have all these, like, ward abilities, just going to bounce magic off of them, and, like, then they just, like, kept scaling back and scaling back and scaling back, until we're finally at a point where they've got almost nothing available to them gear-wise, and, like, you basically have to dedicate into very oddly specific stuff to make them do anything useful. Like, for example, if you're wondering why I put that armor on them earlier, let's take a quick peek at how their armor situation is. So you get Def 35, Vit 6 off their Worm Scale. This is why I say it's their pretty much best armor choice, because that's a lot of hard armor. You could also go for the Alluring setup, which is 25 armor and 15 luck. Okay, potentially useful for them. What do all the vests give? Well, they improve your armor by 2, and then they give you no vitality bonus. Okay, so functionally speaking, that's not great. Let's look at the Reeking armor. You know, Vit 2 gives 4 extra armor, a little bit better in some ways, but the Mind bonus and Resistance bonus off of the Worm Scale is quite a bit more useful. So, you know, definitely sticking to that. Helmet-wise, you basically get, if you want to go full tanky, you could always go for Damask Helm plus 1 for quite a while there, which, you know, 30 with a 6 of it isn't terrible. It works well for this class. I believe what they were trying to do is, like, make you do a samurai type of thing. It's weird, though. It's especially weird because the Damask Helm situation is strange. You get the regular Damask straight out of the store. The plus 1 is harder to get than the thing that it upgrades into, which is the Worm Scale. Which technically the Worm Scale, you know, it's not exactly what I'd call an upgrade over it. But it does give you potentially access to a set effect. There's no, like, way to test if you get the set effect if you were able to equip the Worm Scale, but pretty much all weapons that have a dragon effect to them could, for the most part, complete the set. This is one of those, like, background things that really would not be terribly amazing to see, but it would be cool at least if they had the option. But again, like most of the use item effects that you'd want on something like this, you don't get. So having, like, for example, gloves with BOS would be fairly useful on there. Being able to stun things with their spellcraft off the lightning gaunts would be pretty useful. Same thing with the Jiggalas and their fixate. Which, I mean, this wouldn't be super expected, but still. Worm Scale sleeves just surprise me because they'd, again, be a perfect option for them. By the way, if you're wondering why it says that it looks like a Swordmaster can equip this, this is a jacked up save file, and that guy is technically a Knight Commander down there. Don't question it, it's a long story. Alright, anyway. So, in the meantime, though, Damask Mitts +1 are not terribly hard to get a hold of, so that can do ya until you get Daedalus Gauntlets for them, if you really feel like investing all the way down for these guys. So you can kind of see where I'm coming from when I say that really just running up and petrifying things while dodging and hoping for the best is really the best this class can do. They just get nothing. I don't know why they decided to give them nothing. It really hurts to see. They get access to pretty much no set effects. Their gear options are terrible. Their weapons are almost exclusively bad. Their skill options are limited in really weird ways. They're a duelist class, right? Because they got the whole preempt thing, they got the whole Mind's Eye thing. In theory, they should be able to 1v1 outfight almost every class in the game, but they can't keep it up, is the thing. Like, they can keep up fighting in groups for a couple rounds, maybe, and that's all well and good. You know, like Mind's Eye then gives them a finisher, which they can't use the finisher because they would end up getting overwhelmed because they can't use evade anymore, or not evade, but they can't use preempt anymore. So they would have to hope that they generate enough TP over this whole process to essentially boost that over the edge, so to speak. So that's a bit of a problem for them. Like where they have these TP skills, but they can't really generate enough TP to use their finishers and everything else, which, speaking of, let's go take a look at the finishers. Let's replace this with 2 HKs. This guy should have 2 HKs, right? I believe he's maxed out on everything. No, okay, who's got maxed out 2 HKs on this save file? I feel like somebody must. And by the way, so an interesting thing just for comparison here, as I was doing this little test here, I went ahead and turned on quick skill rank up. I think it's like 1,000 times experience or something like that. But just so you see, the time that it took to get katanas up to max rank, this actually got 1 extra one, but it still was barely at rank 2 in that time. So just seeing the kind of rank ups earlier was actually a little bit more significant, you know? Okay, so let's take a look at what we got here. So, we got Stone Bloom, Skyrend, Ghost Whale, which is depressing considering that Death Whale exists, and then Sun Blossom. Okay, so we got 2 elemental scaling moves. We got Dark and Fire. That doesn't really... I mean, Ghost Whale kind of, sort of does some stuff. In terms of potentially going well with their Hellhound sword there. So anyway, Sun Blossom, we got a damage scaling. Okay, that's already potentially something to work with for a Mind's Eye build. Then we got Ghost Whale here, which, yeah, accuracy scaling, bit of a bummer, considering that Dark would be their highest potential thing there. We got Skyrend, which I believe is another... okay, that one is apparently a damage scaler. Okay, so... and then we got Stone Bloom, which is petrification and accuracy scaling. So, what do these actually look like? So Stone Bloom is 1 tile, Skyrend is 1 tile, Ghost Whale is 1 tile, Sun Blossom is 1 tile. So yeah, pretty much exactly like the 2 HKs in that regard, in terms of how different we're looking at. At max stats, with anatomy, and everything else, he can't really one-shot this dude as it is. Sun Blossom up to 367. Ghost Whale, what does that even look like? Neat. So that looks cool at least. But yeah, so even their damage scaling isn't particularly intense when it comes to a damage scaling finisher, because that was a max TP for them. Like, it really hurts. This class is just kind of bad at everything. Anyway, so yeah, they're fun to play around with, but as you can kind of already tell, like, it's just rough for them. Like, when they're at max stats, like they're literally running almost 3 times what the base stats would be to fight these guys, and they still can't just plink them off. That's just not great, is the thing. Anyway, so okay, so final word on this whole thing. I mean, there's really not much more to say there. They're pretty much bad across the board for pretty much any role that you want to put them into. They're fun to play around with in terms of being a, you know, a swordsman kind of build, but Again, their swords are expensive and annoying to get a hold of. Their skills are very situational and easily countered by most things out there. They don't really get access to any tricky options. They are strictly their traditional build for the most part, so they're not exactly fun to build for. Like, honestly, the multiplayer tests when doing these guys was some of the least fun I've had building teams, because they just have no friggin' options. And yeah, I mean, I guess if they were going for, like, historical stuff, they even were kind of off the mark there, because, I mean, even the dudes that they were based off were kind of known for carrying different options with them. Any darn ways. So that'll be that. You guys have a good one. Take care. I'll see you in the next one with the rogues and divine knights and all that kind of thing. Yeah, I can say that we're not going to get any classes worse than this. So, see you then. Take care. And, oh yeah, and always just let me know what you'd like to see covered. Alright, later.